I never imagined myself as a pastor. I can't even imagine myself as a teacher. Actually, I have a fear of speaking in front of more than 5 people. I got a calling as a pastor actually later in life. I distinctively remember I wanted to be a pilot. At one point, until I started to wear glasses. And then, I wanted to be a doctor. Actually, it's a very long time ambition, but well, it didn't work out. And there are many things that I've dreamt to be. Even as an adventurer, explorer, like Dora the Explorer. And yeah, in fact, I think my first job after I graduated, I got a job that travels to East Africa, and it was quite fun. I think after working 10 years in the marketplace, I have got this burden that got placed in my heart to feed people under my care. And there was once after, I think, after I worked for about 10 years, I get a glimpse that God was calling me into full-time. At that time, I think separately, 2 of my friends in the same small group, separately they came to talk to me and asked me if I have thought about going to full-time. And they are happy to sponsor me to go to study in the theological college. But I remember at that time, I looked at them and said, "Do you all hear wrongly? Is there something wrong here with you?" Jokingly. And I need to confirm that calling. So I discussed with my wife, we prayed about it, and we still didn't get any confirmation. But we decided to adjust our lifestyle to prepare in case that it is a calling. So we decided to clear all our debts, and it took me quite a while to finally respond to that call. It took about 10 years. Yeah, it took about 10 years because I was really enjoying what I was doing. And but after 10 years, God did call me, and I decided to go to study. Yeah, at the time, but it was one of the happiest time I had. I never liked to study, but that 3 years in TTC was quite a time for me. I find it very fascinating to try to know the mind of Christ, to know His heart. The Bible itself has a very rich content. Somehow, when you read it, sometimes you think you understand it, but as you read further, you realize that God has some intention. He has some intention for every word that He writes. So the discipline of study is something that I enjoy a lot. Ministering to people actually is the most scary thing for me. Mainly it's because you impact their life. You have to, at the back of my mind is always that, whoa, whatever I say as a pastor will affect the person. So I tend to be careful, to pray a lot. I think getting to know the person is also very important, but there's a lot of pressure. Can you imagine giving wrong advice? And that will be quite terrible. But at the same time, I think we will have to rely really on God, on the Holy Spirit. Even you minister to people, I think it's also 2 ways. You also help the person to perceive or to discern what God is trying to tell that person as well. Yeah, so that would take some pressure off, but mainly also it's still quite stressful. I think the first stereotypes is that when people first know that you're a pastor, I think some people think that you know all the answers in the Bible, which is not true. We are all learners. God is so big that I think it takes a lifetime or eternity to even know Him fully. Or is it possible to really know Him fully? So we are learners like any one of us. But as a shepherd, I think we can lead people to know God more. And but that's one thing, we don't really know all the answers. Yeah. Okay, if you hear the calling to be a pastor, I think first thing first is to confirm that calling. Usually God don't speak to you alone. God usually speak through your community as well, your friends, your SG, your church or your church leaders. You try to discern that calling together with them. So that's the first thing. Most people will be afraid. I mean, they will have fear if they hear that they are being called to be a pastor. Well, it's normal to be afraid because it's a big responsibility to be a pastor. But it's also okay to be afraid. I think it's how you deal with that fear. Will you be paralyzed by that fear, or will you utilize that fear to do something about it? So my own experience, I lack knowledge, I lack the passion for study. So the first thing I did, it was to read the word, to work on that passion for study, which in God's grace, in that 10 years that I was perceiving that the calling, to try to confirm that calling, I did learn and grow to love the discipline of study. So, and then the third thing, I probably think that if you think you have a calling to be a pastor, is that you also need to count the cost. Like Jesus said, that you need to count the cost to be a disciple. You need to count the cost in doing whatever you need to do or called to do, whether it's what will you lose or what will you gain, what are the things that you need to do. So 3 things in summary, I think you need to confirm with your community, do something about that fear, build yourself up, and then count the cost.
Thank you for watching. Through these stories of faith, we hope to foster a culture of vulnerability and openness within our church community. If you would like to share how God has worked through your life, or if you think that your past struggles may encourage someone in this present moment, kindly drop us an email. If you're new to this church, come and visit us on our live stream on Sunday mornings, or you can visit our website at faithmc.sg. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so that you can keep up with our stories of faith.